What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Hoops Betting Hour, presented by PicksWise and powered by FanDuel. I'm your host, the big man on campus here. Another day, another dollar, and we are after it here on a Friday, Memorial Day weekend. Hope you're having a good day so far. Got a long weekend coming up. First real holiday that feels like a holiday, I know for me. So enjoy it, have fun, be safe. But we got money to get to, and the money train is rolling right now. I continue to fire away and win in the NBA. 2-0 again last night with the Bucks, and then with that wild finish that we'll get to in Denver and Portland. It's been fun. We'll keep trudging along today. We get 3 games, 2 in the East, 1 in the West. A lot to do here on a Friday. We're here every day, noon Eastern. So yes, we're going to be here tomorrow. We're going to be here Sunday. We're going to be here Monday. We're here every day until the end of the NBA Finals. Make sure you join us every day, noon Eastern. Let's bring in our guest today. He's always here on a Friday. We'll see how he's been doing. Ian Cameron joins us. Ian, how you been doing in the NBA? You doing well in the playoffs?
Yeah, good to be with you. Good until last night. Last night was a very tough night. I'm one of those people that got sucked into the Miami first half and first quarter angle, down 2-0 in the series at home, and quickly realized that wasn't going to happen. They're just not as good as Milwaukee this time around. I mean, Milwaukee's learned some things. They're better equipped. I think Miami's got some issues right now in terms of a couple of their guys not being healthy, because it's hard to explain how poor some of their players have been this series against this Milwaukee team. Bam hasn't played well. Hero's been unnoticeable. Butler's even not been himself. So there's been issues for Miami. And look, Milwaukee's just a better team. I think they've learned some painful lessons from years past about how they haven't gotten it done and how they've come up short. Their defense has been on point. Drew Holiday's been a huge upgrade at that point guard spot from Eric Bledsoe. I figured that would be a good chance for them to be better with him there. It's been that way. They're just better than Miami right now. So didn't fare well there. I did fare a little bit better with that Portland-Denver over. I can't say I deserved it, but we got there with all the late fouls. I'll take it. Unfortunately, I had the Portland side. That was wrong. I'm a little bit concerned again with this Blazers defense, which again continues to be that concern for them. And I lost with the Suns last night. I thought plus the points, the Lakers were bad home favorites lately. That the Suns, after losing game 2, even with Paul having the issues injury-wise, would step up and have a much better game. And, well, they played better for a half, but then the second half, the Lakers took over and dominated and pretty much took a stranglehold on that game.
Yeah, it was, I think last night, and that's the playoffs. You're either on or you're not in certain nights. And then you just kind of, figure it out and get back there the next night. But when you started out, you mentioned the Heat. And look, I think this is just something that we're just starting to uncover with this group. The problems that they've had all season are really coming back to haunt them. Their inability to make threes all season. It was so good last year, and it's not been as good this year. Hero's definitely taken a major backseat to other guys. You look at in 2 out of these 3 games, they have failed to get to 100 points. They're just lost offensively. They're lost against the athleticism, the length, the height that Milwaukee can throw out there. Drew Holiday is a major advantage over Eric Bledsoe was last year. This might be the year for the Bucks, man. They have obviously struggled to win, important games and to extend deep into the playoffs. But, like the Sixers, it could be their year, both these teams. Maybe they see each other in the Eastern Conference Finals. That could be fascinating. But the Heat have had no success stopping the Bucks either, and that's a bad tonic. They have gotten blown out the last 2 nights. 84 points is laughable. 14 points in the first quarter of a game at home that you had to have, you were desperate in, is just pathetic.
This is 1-2-3 Cancun, Jeff. They're done.
Yeah.
They're done after game 4.
They had 36 points at the half last night. That's dreadful. It's just dreadful. And they have had no success. This series is over. It was over. Look, I think the fact that they weren't able to win that game 1 where, Bucks couldn't make anything, it's just kind of rough. Quickly to that Laker game, I will be honest with you. I didn't play this game last night. I had to lean to the Lakers just because I didn't know how healthy Chris Paul was. And again, he's not a factor. And this is kind of, I think, a problem. And we know it's a problem. If he is not fully healthy, as we kind of talked about yesterday, and I think as everyone knows, and I'm sure you probably are well aware of, this team's screwed. I mean, it's pretty simple. And we saw it in the second quarter. Again, a dreadful offensive quarter for a team in the NBA. 12 points is just disgraceful. This team's lost without Chris Paul, and you know that, Ian.
Yeah, floor general, a leader, not only a guy that facilitates the offense and runs the show at the point position, but he's a good defender as well. Excellent at that spot. So you miss just so much without him there. And you're hoping that there's some other guy. Like, I give credit to Cameron Payne, and there's been some other supporting players and role players that have stepped up for the Suns a little bit. Booker's done everything he could, although he can't get in that kind of foul like he did last night. It's just a selfish play. You're hurting your team that way. Not good for him to do that. You're very valuable, especially with Chris Paul ailing. Can't get involved in stuff like that. Last night just hurt that Suns team significantly. But give the Lakers credit. They're healthy. We just wondered, would they be able to get that cohesion together? And slowly but surely you're seeing it, from this group. Anthony Davis is back again. He's played good the last couple of games. LeBron, we know, I think there's still a lot of room for improvement for him, but they're still winning games these last two without him even close to his best. That's a good sign. The defense is back. This was always one of the top 5 teams in the NBA this season in terms of defensive efficiency, and now we're starting to see that level of D come back again for the Lakers. So it's back to the drawing board for Monty and crew for this Suns team, and I don't know if they're going to be able to find any answers right now.
Yeah, it's just unlucky. I mean, where they are with just the injury to Paul. I think you said it best, though, and I think what's scary for the rest of the NBA is I don't know if this Lakers team is playing necessarily at the highest level yet. I mean, as you said with LeBron, he's been very good but not great. AD's been on his top level. Schroeder's had games where he's been in and out. They've got nothing from Kuzma. Very little from everyone else, and they're still winning games. I mean, defensively, they're terrific, and that's going to go a long way. It's just, again, rough luck for the Suns. Chris Paul has failed in 3 games to score more than 10 points in any of them. It's not enough. You cannot have him play poorly or not, fully healthy and win. It's just not going to happen, especially against this defense. And the final game, as you said, a wild look, at the end of the third, I was beside myself. I had the over in this game. I backed the over in the first couple here, and I saw that 40-point third quarter, and I said to myself,
like, uh-oh, that's trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they had 69 points in the first quarter, and I'm thinking, all right, great. As usual, just an up and down, a lot of buckets type of game. And then that third quarter comes, and I'm just thinking, I mean, I guess the sharp money was right, man. They pulled it out from under us. And then you had one of those end of the games that you pray for as an over better, right? Because when you have an over, you need the team winning to make their free throws. But keep it within 7 or 6 or 8, where as long as the other team's making threes, they're going to foul. And I got to tell you, Ian, coming into the last 2 minutes of the game, the Blazers were 10 for 40 from 3. And I tweeted about it. I mean, it's anemic. I mean, it's horrible. And then the Dame Lillard show happens, where they just start making threes.
Raining trades.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful tonic to get yourself a beautiful over spritzer. I love it. Over comes in. They get to 235. But you made a good point. The Trailblazers is starting to become troublesome. The defense is not good, but it wasn't that I mean, McCollum didn't play real well last night. They just didn't shoot the ball real well. That's probably not going to happen again, and that's why, for me, I will keep riding the over in this series. I will keep riding it. I mean, you look at game 4. You throw it out. Total's not out there yet, but you're probably going to throw it out there 228.5. And I'm going to bet it again.
You know what? And I feel when I look back at the total specifically with last night's game, I feel in the camp of I feel bad for the people that had the under a little bit because you had a right side going into the fourth quarter a little bit going into that game. And actually, believe it or not, the full game under was a tough beat. The second half under was a brutal beat. It's one of the sickest, worst, brutal beats I've ever seen because the bucket that put that second half over the total was that tip job by Nikola Jokic on the missed free throw with like a second left that gave Denver a 5-point lead.
And keep in mind,
how the second half under lost.
They had 40 points in the third quarter. So what they need 70 to go over? It was probably wild. 65.
That was rough. You thought the full game under, if you had the full game under, you thought you took a bad loss? How about if you had the second half under and you lost like that on that last second tip shot?
They score 40 in the third quarter and 72 in the fourth quarter. What a wild, weird game. Yeah. 69 in the first, 40 in the third, and then 72 in the fourth. Just, I'll take it. When you're hut, as they say, you're hut.
So half of me, the one half says, I feel bad for the people that bet the under. The other half of me says, you got what you deserved if you bet the under, because I've said all series long, Portland cannot stop Jokic inside. They have no rim protection or answer down low for him. None at all. And that's not going to change. This is not an issue of Terry Stotts needing to make adjustments. This is not a personnel situation that you can just stick someone else and they'll get the job done. No, you simply have no answer. So they're not going to stop Jokic offensively at any point in this series. And then on the flip side, Portland is probably going to have a tough time getting stopped by Denver. That backcourt for the long part of the series, especially Campazzo Lillard, a bit of a mismatch there. They defended well at times, but they're not going to consistently shut down that backcourt. These are offensive advantages, Jeff, that I just think are going to exist throughout the entire series. I don't think there's anything either of these coaches can do defensively to fix it. So I think it's just going to be over City for the rest of the year. And one last thing, Jeff, Denver, Utah. Reminds me of that series from last year in the first round. Every game went over the total. Why? Because there was no defensive answer on either side for what the other team did well.
And efficiency on offense. Yeah. Listen, I've said this. I said this every time I talk about this series. Last year, the Denver Nuggets had, towards the end of the playoffs, some success defensively, just a little bit, because they were able to use Michael Porter in defense situations, get a little bit out of him, and then bring in Gary Harris or Jeremy Grant or whoever. They don't have that luxury this year. They don't have anyone else. They've got to play Michael Porter. They've got to play guys that can't defend. Look, Campazzo's a nice player. Austin Rivers are nice players, but they're not defenders. And we know Portland doesn't defend. So, and you're right. I mean, you said it pretty eloquently. I mean, Jokic gets whatever he wants. Your only defense is Nurkic, who's not a good defender to begin with. So, yeah, I'm not getting off it. And you're not going to adjust this total, that much higher. You're not going to put this at 235. So you're going to just keep getting – and you know who's losing on these unders that I don't feel bad about? Sharps. People that, win generally. You don't – it's not like the, $25 bettors are losing these. So, that's what you get for betting unders. Sorry.
So that's how I feel. Tough beat last night if you had the under, but the other half of me says, you know what? Why are you betting an under in this series?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. All right, let's get into today's action. We got 3 games, as I said, 2 in the East, 1 in the West. And there are some teams that need to start to wake up a little bit. Or after tonight at about midnight, these couple of teams might be out of the playoffs. It's that simple. Let's get into it. We'll start it out in New York and Atlanta. This one's turned into a bit of a rivalry, maybe. Atlanta laying 5, total 211.5. So off the court, the fan that hawked a big one on Trey Young is banned for life from Madison Square Garden. Definitely, or not. I guess not for life, but indefinitely. I'm guessing that would be life. So that guy. Look. Not really sure what you're thinking there. Look, I made jokes about the popcorn or whatever, but I don't know if you know this, dude, but it's probably not the best time to be. You should never spit on anyone, but I think it should be immediately in everybody's head that, hey, maybe I should not only not attempt to spin on anybody, but even like try to expel anything from my mouth. Like what is this person thinking? This person should be plastered all over the internet. Real scumbag move to do this. It's low life behavior. But this emboldens people. This pandemic, you've seen it, really all over the place. You'll see random stories in America where people go to grocery stores and just drink out of juice cartons and spit on people because they didn't like what they said. I mean, it's just it's lame. It's really lame. And we saw it during the pandemic, Ian. Like during the height of it, they were upgrading charges on people that did this. People that spit on police or whoever. Like, this shouldn't happen. This shouldn't be happening right now. And it should never happen anyway. But good for New York for doing something about this guy. But Trey Young has been terrific in this series. These games have been very good. Shout out to Atlanta, who just really fell asleep in the second half. I don't know what that was the other night, but I think it continues to show that Atlanta's the better team in this series. I think we can kind of agree with that. I think that we can say that. I think
they have the better starting five. I'm not convinced they have the better bench. The bench has done nothing for Atlanta.
Oh yeah, no, the better. Yeah, look, they've been very good. Whether it was Burks or whoever. But this series is close. This series is about big-time players. And I'll tell you, when I seen this number move up to 5, it's now down to 4.5. That came across a bit high to me, I'll be honest. This game and this series just seems close. I know the other game, the other night was at 9, and it ended up, they kind of pulled away a little bit. But, both these series for 40-plus minutes in both were close, particularly in game 1. I'm kind of going to isolate this game, and I'm going to just look at one player. And I'm going to look at a player at home. I'm going to look at a player that's been the bell cow offensively. And I'm going to look at a player that, even back into the regular season, Ian, when he plays 35 minutes, which in the playoffs is what he's going to have to do, he scores 30 points literally every game. I'm going Trey Young over 25.5. Is it square? Maybe. But he scored 30 and 32 in both these games so far. You got to go back, Ian, and I'm talking again, in games that he's played over 30 minutes in, you have to go all the way back to, May 5th against Phoenix where they won by 32, where he didn't play 30 minutes in that game, so we don't count that one. He played 35 minutes against Portland back on May 3rd. He scored 21, didn't shoot the ball real well in that game. But, Trey Young is a gamer. It doesn't seem like they can stop Trey Young from getting into the lane, getting into the paint, those floaters, all that sort of thing. I don't hate a points and assists prop as well maybe here. But I think this, for me, if all I got to do is get Trey Young to get his average in a 40-minute performance, 38-minute performance, I'm all in on that. I think at home he'll really get behind this crowd. I think that'll really spurn him. Obviously, Trey Young is one of those kids, Ian, that really feeds off negativity. And being back at home with obviously becoming the villain up in New York, with an opportunity, I think, to really take some real control in this series. I like Atlanta. I think they probably find a way to get the win here. I'm not really running to the window to bet, 4, 4.5, 5. Totals are tough in this series. But one thing I do know is that if Trey Young plays 30-plus minutes, it's a pretty damn good percentage he's going to get into the 30s. I'm going over 25.5 points here.
That's not a bad number, and he's gone on 30-plus in 5 of 7 games coming into tonight.
Exactly.
5 of his last 7. So the percentages, that's a 71%.
And again, Ian,
angle on your side right there.
Look at those 2 that he didn't get. He only played 17.5 minutes, I think, in those 2 games apiece. So.
And then you got the spitting situation, and look, he's going to be beyond fired up tonight after what happened the other night. He feeds off that kind of thing. And look, give the Knicks credit. Thibodeau, we said in game 2, do you have an answer for Trey Young? Because Trey Young single-handedly crushed the Knicks in game 1. Single-handedly, just about, especially down the stretch. Well, he puts Bullock on Trey Young in the second half of that game. And look, he's a taller defender. It really made a difference. He did finally struggle a little bit. But now I think the onus is going to be on Atlanta back home. Find a way to get him off Bullock or away from him. I think that's very possible. And the way I'm looking at a lot of these games, Jeff, in the playoffs, is I'm breaking these games down into segments. Who do I think is going to win the first quarter? Who do I think is going to win the first half? Who do I think is going to win the full game? And I think this is one of those Atlanta, New York situations. I think Atlanta first quarter makes sense because I think their best punch comes early. I think Atlanta first half makes sense. And look, what have we seen in the first two games? Who's been the better team in the first half in these games so far? The Atlanta Hawks. They have asserted themselves, and especially now, coming off a tough loss at MSG in Game 2, back home, they get to experience the energy of their fan base for the first time in the playoffs. I think they're going to have a strong first 24 minutes in this game. I do like the Hawks in the first quarter. I do like the Hawks in the first half, but I kind of feel the way you do about the full game. I'm not really rushing to lay 5 because I could see New York. One thing about them is they're gritty, they're resilient. They don't give up in a game. They're a very good, cohesive group. And even if they get behind, they've shown the ability to rally back, make adjustments, and come back in the game. So I'm looking at Atlanta early, first quarter and first half. And I might actually jump on New York at halftime or bet them live in the second half at some point. That's the way I'm approaching this game.
It's a tough one. I think the line is, I just have a hard time really because I don't think, winning by 9 was great. I don't think it was indicative of how, I don't think New York was 9 points better. They kind of pulled away towards the end and found a way. But yeah, you mentioned the Trae Young stuff. The kid is just a gamer, man. He feeds off that negativity. Coming back home will be helpful. I'll tell you this, Ian. Let me ask you about this one. So on FanDuel, there's a bet you can make. The top scorer in the game, Trae Young, is at plus 120. He's the favorite. Do you see anyone in New York that, keep in mind in both games, he's been the top scorer. Obviously, I think you think about Julius Randle, but I think he's been I think Capella will does a good job against him. Do you just say, maybe you take a shot there with plus money? I don't really see anyone on the Knicks, maybe outside of Randle, that would be the top scorer. Trae Young is a gamer, man. He's the best player on the court. He's got a pretty good matchup, I think. We know how good New York's defense is, but it doesn't seem as if, I've seen time and time again in both games, that he just gets into spots that he's kind of able to kind of do what he wants to do. So I'm kind of focused on Trae Young in this game. I liked what it
should be the favorite. I agree with that. He definitely should be the favorite. I don't know if I'd take Randle, or I'd be interested in taking Randle. He's got to show me 48 strong minutes of offensive basketball.
Yeah, no.
And we haven't seen it yet from him. We've seen it in fits and starts. We didn't see it at all in Game 1, and we really didn't see it in Game 2 until later in the game. Could it be a breakout game? Buy low on him, perhaps. The one player I might be willing to take a shot on is Bogdanovich for Atlanta on their side. Maybe Derrick Rose for the New York Knicks, because I've been impressed with his offense, especially in the last game. Thought he played very well for the Knicks. So if you're looking for some value down that board, if you're going to bet that highest scorer prop in that game, I'd look maybe Bogdanovich for the Hawks, Rose for the Knicks, but pretty good chance I think Young ends up being the highest scorer tonight. He's the rightful favorite.
Yeah, it's all about Young here. And this will be a best bet over 25.5 points later in the show. Sean Harrison makes a interesting point. Why would you spit in your 50 cents girl? Yeah, that was also interesting about this. Obviously, sitting down that low is not cheap. Who was this guy that did this? Wild move to and it again. I don't think Trae Young even noticed it when it happened. I think it was pretty clear, but that's an interesting point. I don't know if that was 50's girl. It might have been. It might not have been. Beautiful nonetheless, but. 50 Cent, Ian, you would agree, outside of maybe some of the trolling that he does, you've got to agree 50 Cent's pretty universally loved. Does anyone hate 50 Cent? How can you ever hate 50 Cent?
I didn't like his music as he went along in his career, but the early part, the first couple albums there, they were fire. His first couple albums, they were excellent. His
first album could be one of the best ever made, really. Get Rich or Die Trying was high level, man.
Yeah.
Really high level.
Definitely.
I always say What Up Gangsta is one of the really underrated beats.
What Up Gangsta?
Yeah. That beat is just, it gets you going, man. Gets you going. All right. Next game. We'll fire away here on a Friday, Memorial Day weekend. If you got your plans set for Memorial Day weekend, let us know what you're doing in the chat. What are you having to eat? What's on the menu? Are you having a barbecue? What do you got going on? Brooklyn at Boston. Brooklyn, they're up big in this series, and they're laying 8 here. Total is 226.5. Ian, I need a yes or no answer from you. Is this series over?
Yes.
Will they win a game, Boston? Yes or no?
I'm going to say no.
I mean, let me ask you tonight. I mean, Kemba Walker, questionable. Obviously, terrible news for a bad team.
Jason Tatum's eye is all messed up. He's got a damaged eye. I mean,
has this team been a team you want to back for months? I mean, ever? No. I don't want to back them. And this seems like the Bucks Heat series, right? Yep. They just can't score against a longer, better team. And they can't also stop that team either.
No. I'm not getting sucked into the team down 0-2 going back home for game 3 thing tonight. Not like last night. I learned my lesson with Miami. When a team is done, they're done. If they can't match up, they can't match up. And that's the case. It's finito, Tostitos, in my opinion, for the Boston Celtics right now. It would only be Brooklyn. I'm probably not betting Brooklyn either, but I'm off the side. I might get there with the over, though. I mean, the overs in Brooklyn games below 230. They're almost auto overs. I believe there's 70% this season for the totals that are below 230 for Brooklyn games. I think we're going to see this over the total. Look, Boston does the one thing they do, and I know Walker's banged up and Tatum's got issues with his eye, and that obviously is a significant part of the Celtics offense. But Boston does play better offensive basketball at home. They do. I mean, their numbers all season long, they've shot the ball extremely better. Their offensive efficiency is better at TD Garden than it is on the road. So that, I think, is going to give them a chance to at least score tonight. But they ain't stopping Brooklyn. They just aren't. I mean, Durant, Harden, Irving. It's bad enough you have to defend those 3, and Marcus Smart's the only defender I count on. Possession in, possession out. And then you got to worry about Joe Harris going off like he did last game.
Yeah, he was great.
You got to worry about Landry Shamet. What if Luwawu Cabarrot, and some of these other guys on the bench get going for the Nets? That's a problem. It's just too much, and they have not enough quality defenders or defense overall, Boston, especially this season. Their defense has dropped like a stone compared to where it was last year. They're just not going to stop this Nets team. So I would only back Brooklyn from a side perspective. It's a little pricey laying 8 on the road, so I don't think I'm going to do it. But I am going to probably bet over the total. It's reasonable to me at 226.5.
God, I hate this team. I hate the Celtics so much. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. They suck. And again, good call on Harris. You're right, though. They are better at home offensively. I don't really – Game 1 was a weird game. No one really made shots. Game 2 is, I think, a little bit more indicative of what not only Boston can do and I think on the up and up offensively can do. I mean, Brooklyn's going to score 120s. I mean, that's kind of what they do. This is the best offense in the NBA. This is a defense that just is just so dreadful at the rim. I mean, they just don't have any. They don't have anything. Team total over 117.
Say what you will about Daniel Tice, but Daniel Tice was a little under. Sometimes didn't have the girth of a big man, but he gave you an effort. He gave you intensity. He gave you everything he had down low to try to protect the rim and protect the paint. And now, of course, he's in Chicago. They traded him, and there's pretty much nothing now on this team. Look, I'm not a Tristan Thompson guy. He's a mouthpiece. I'm ashamed he's Canadian. I don't like him at all. Just don't like the guy, and I think he's an overrated player, and he should be better defensively down there than he is.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to go for in this game is, and I bet at the first game it didn't come in. It's one of the few losses I've had in the playoffs. I didn't back it in game 2, but you know what? I'm gonna back it in game 3. I think it's clear. I just don't think Boston can stop Brooklyn at the rim. I think offensively they're incredible.
Are you going where I think you're going? The team total, Brooklyn?
Yeah, because I don't. Here's why I don't want to go full game. Like I do definitely lean that way, but I would like it a lot more if I knew what the story was with Kemba Walker. Could this be one of those games where they just pack it in and get blown out, and the Nets get 125 and it's 125, 105 or something? 117.5 is low enough where it's below the season average for Brooklyn. Keep in mind, Brooklyn, I think, averages 118.5 per game. Everybody's healthy. Harris has been a contributor. They can get to the rim at will. You could really just kind of death nail this series tonight. I'm going to go with that here. I'm going to come back to the well with Brooklyn. I'm going to come back to the well with that offense. I know how good they are. We all know how good they are. And I'm going to rock with it here. Brooklyn,
and they should be good. Like, let's lose kid who. There's no excuse for them not to be good. There's no excuse for them not to be the best or one of the best offenses in the NBA with the personnel and the talent they have, and certainly against a bad defensive team. And you ask the question, are the Celtics just going to pack it in and quit? There's that potential, because when you lose a game like they did down the stretch of the regular season to a G League Oklahoma City roster, and yes, that was a loss for Boston late in the regular season. If that's not showing some signs of quitting problems,
this team's gutless, man.
Yep.
They're gutless. And that's a great call by you on the Thunder game. A couple comments here. Hustle Man saying he's sitting here listening to the – wow, that's a bit of a stretch. I don't know if we're the best handicappers of the planet. That's very nice. I
try to be one of the better ones, but I don't want to ever say it. I'm the best guy. I'm not wired that way. I don't think that way. I respect a lot of people in this business, and I'm just hoping to be among company of some of the good ones.
Among great company, agreed. Drew Daddy says, Boston has arguably been the most disappointing team this year. Yeah, I think 100%. Boston definitely disappointed, but I think the most disappointing team in the postseason, Clippers. Yeah, and it is. Let's get to the Clippers. That's a great point,
we're getting to them right now.
Very disappointing group. And I gotta admit, I'm kind of a broken man with the Clippers. I bet them in game, 2? No shot. I think I've had 4 or 5 losses in the playoffs. This is one of them. I hate this team. Another team I hate. I have 2 teams I hate. This group and the Celtics. The Clippers are so gutless in the playoffs, it makes me sick. And Ski Profit made a point the other day about this, and I kind of agree at this point. Maybe the Clippers just aren't good. I mean, outside of Kawhi and Paul George, do you want to trust him in the playoffs? I mean, do you trust anyone in this team? They don't have any competence off the bench that you want to go to. They don't, Patrick Beverley is I mean, what happened to him? I thought he was such a great defender.
Great last year. He's been very, very poor this year. He's barely getting the minutes because he's struggling so much.
But what has happened to him? And Reggie Jackson, yikes. Serge Ibaka, not really done much. I mean, this team sucks. I hate them. But, I don't love Dallas outside of Luka. I think they're better than they're given credit for. I guess I probably lean on why are the Clippers a favorite on the road? Are you?
I'm not laying points with this team on the road. Not a chance. Not a chance in hell.
Do they just
Clippers on the road?
I mean, do they just quit here? I mean, is that where we are with the Clippers at this point? I mean, they can't, because the series is at least, viable, but it's like this team sucks. And time and time again, I want to bet them, and it's like, no, I'm not. You got beat up in game 1 after you were winning with 5 minutes to go. What the hell was that? And then the other night, I mean, you score 121, but you can't get any stops. It's just dreadful stuff, man. You can't stop Luka. I'm sick of saying, maybe Patrick Beverley will figure it out. I'm done with it. I hate this series. I'm not betting this game. I'm going to lean on Dallas, though, at home. I don't know why they're a 3-point dog at home. It's just kind of weird. But I'm sick of wondering whether they're going to show up. Clippers.
This is Dallas or nothing for me, and I know it because this is not an anomaly anymore with the LA Clippers. We have to stop talking like this is just a 1 or 2 game blip in the playoffs. This is not. This actually, we should have seen this coming. We should have said last year against Denver and that absolute flame out. That's what it was, a flame out in that series against the Denver Nuggets. That's what it was. They were dominated. They rolled over, and they gave you nothing in that do or die game. And that's what resonates in my mind in a spot like this tonight. Is this feels like a do or die spot for the Clippers. Am I going to get a do or die effort? Am I going to get a do or die performance? I can't trust it, because I've seen enough of this team going back to last year's brutal ending against Denver to think they can pack it in. They've shown you signs of quit before in the playoffs. You look at this roster, Kawhi's still putting up, Kawhi was great offensively. I don't think he's playing as good defensively in this series at all. Paul George has never been a big playoff performer. Pat Beverley's given you no offense. His defense has slipped. Where's playoff Rondo? Usually playoff Rondo, they were talking about getting Rondo for the playoffs. He's been non-existent. He's been a
Hey, no
non-impact
offense,
player so far.
Yeah, can we admit that Lou Williams is probably like much more important than they let on? Because it wouldn't be. Let me ask you: if they had Lou Williams the last 2 games, you think they win? Because I think they do.
I honestly don't know, because the problem is not necessarily it wasn't offense the last game, and the one thing Lou Williams won't help you with is defense.
Right.
Defense is the problem. This is the issue. This is the crux of the issue.
But I think he puts him over the top.
Yeah, he could. Offensively, he's certainly going to help. But here's the real issue. People are still talking about the Clippers as this elite defensive team. Not right now they are. Not in the playoffs last year against Denver when Jamal Murray and Nikola are having a tag team killing them inside out in that series. Were they a good defensive team? Not right now in this series, giving up 50% from the floor, thereabouts in this series. Are they a good defensive team? They're not a good defensive team right now. That is the reality. The fiction is people still think of them as one of the best teams overall, one of the best defensive teams overall in the NBA. This is not the LA Clippers right now. I don't trust them laying points on the road. It's a matter of, does Dallas have that killer instinct in them? You've got your neck right on their throat right now. You got to snap it off and twist it now. Simple as that. Can they show you that? I'll tell you what about Dallas. At least they're showing up in the critical moments, getting stops, which has been the key. Doncic has been amazing. Kleber's had a nice series. Tim Hardaway, streaky as it gets, but what a series he's had for the Dallas Mavericks to this point. Porzingis healthy, making an impact. There's a lot to like here for this Dallas Mavericks team. There really is. They've got momentum, and I don't have enough belief, Jeff, based on this series so far, and an absolute give-up mentality from the Clippers against the Nuggets in the bubble last year. Because of those factors alone, there's no way I'm backing the Clippers. If I'm on this game, it's Dallas.
Yeah, that's kind of my sentiment. I really just am done trying to figure out whether they're gonna decide to play well. I think Ski made a real good point. I just don't think there's much that I want outside of Kawhi, and maybe do I want to trust Paul George in the playoffs? No, I'm not betting it. I'm staying the hell away from it. And again, if there's anyone in the chat that can make a viable point as to why the Clippers should be a 3-point favorite on the road, I'd like to hear it. But, I also know how lines work in the NBA, and I'll say that I think the entire planet is going to be on Dallas in this game because they're going to think exactly what we just said the last 10 minutes, that the Clippers should be favored.
So, but why did the Mavericks open a favorite in this game and now the Clippers are favored?
Yeah.
Because that's where the lines move.
Yeah,
it makes you think everybody's on the Clippers here.
Right? No, that's fair. I mean, last ditch effort. So maybe it's a sharp. I don't know.
Here's the thing about latching yourself to the wagon of the last ditch effort thought process. Like with Miami last night, how did that work? Not very well in that game. It may not work with Boston tonight. May not work with the Clippers tonight. This is a unique season. When teams see the writing on the wall, season slipping away, the series slipping away, I don't think the fight is there as much to battle back. For this reason, you've played a ton of games. You're tired. I know we're at the tail end of the throes of this pandemic, but we're still in it. And I think there's some players that are thinking, it's not going our way. It's been a long season. We've played a lot of games in a short period of time. Let's just go home. Let's just go home. And I'm wondering if that mentality is creeping into some of these players at this point.
Yeah, you got to wonder. You definitely have to wonder. That's a fascinating point. Let's do best bets. We'll wrap it up with some college hoop stuff. I wanted to touch on a couple of transfers and some situations that we're seeing here. Best bets. I'm going to go with Trey Young over 25.5 points against the New York Knicks, and I'm also going to go with the Nets. Team total over 117.5. I think they put a stake in the heart of the Celtics tonight, and I think they get into the 120s here. Ian Cameron, give us some best bets. What do you got tonight?
Let's do Atlanta Hawks -2.5 in the first half against the New York Knicks. They've won the first half in the first 2 games, and now off a loss and back home and feeding off that energy. And Trey Young knows that he had a bad second half. I expected a strong start from him and that team. I don't love the full game, but I really like the first half with the Atlanta Hawks. -2.5. We'll go with that. And I will also stick with the over 226.5, Brooklyn and Boston. If you want to add a little Brooklyn over team total, Jeff likes that. I wouldn't argue with that either.
Yeah, I like all those for sure. All right, a quick couple college basketball points. Here's something you have to understand and remember. Do not, because it's the summer, forget about college hoops, college football, all that stuff. So one of the best pieces of advice I'll give to a young handicapper, because again, you say what you want about me personally, what you think about me. I've been around here a long time. I'm an OG. I've been doing this since 2009 on Twitter. Ian's been around as well a long time, and I'm sure
Same
he'll
year,
agree.
2009.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he'll agree. The work that you do in the season should be completely less than what you're doing. You have to keep track and keep going and what's going on. You can't let seasons don't end, as they say, especially for me with college hoops, because that's my number one. You got to be keeping track of what's going on with personnel, with coaches, with, everything. And this is going to be a big-time season for the college basketball community. Everything's going to be back to normal, and there are a lot of players moving around. Not only do you have to worry about transfers now, and that is a huge market, you got to figure out what freshmen is coming in, where they're going, who hasn't decided yet, what kids are going to the draft. And that's when people ask me about, what do you like future-wise? I don't play futures until the NBA draft because I need to know who's declared and who's actually leaving. Couple in pieces of news this week, Hunter Dickinson's heading to the NBA draft. However, he did. It's just a talent evaluation. He hasn't committed yet. I think he comes back, personally. But it is interesting because when you look at Michigan, got the number one recruiting class coming in next season. Juwan has this group poised to, I think, be a top 3 team coming into the season. Drew Timme back for Gonzaga, and I kind of thought this would happen. I think if you follow anything going on up at Spokane, you kind of knew this was going to go on. I think there's a lot of unfinished business with this group, and I think Drew
Didn't
Timme's
Mark Few just land another huge recruit too, just recently, another huge one.
Yeah, he did, and I want to get into that. Not only do you have Chet Holmgren, the number one player in the country, coming in. I mean, that's sick to think about. Chet Holmgren and Drew Timme and Anton Watson, another season for him. I mean, it's just sick. It's just absolutely sick. You also bring in Hunter Salas, who's been committed for a while, point guard out of Omaha, Nebraska. You have Andrew Nembhard coming back. They recently got Nolan Hickman to actually decommit from Kentucky and come to Spokane. What Mark has done, and what's so great, is they've grabbed not 1 or 2 guards. They want 4 or 5 guards. And also keep in mind, they went out and got Rasir Bolton as well, a transfer from Iowa State, who averaged 16 points a game last year.
He's a good player for them. He was one of the few good ones this past season.
He's gonna act as the Nembhard probably. So Nembhard's gonna kind of pump up to maybe that IIE role, and Bolton will be that better than Aaron Cook, but not as good as Nembhard last season. So this team is squarely number one in the country coming into next year. Chet Holmgren and Timmy's sick, but that backcourt, I mean, is pretty impressive also. So
Mark Few's determined to break down that door and win that national championship. He is determined, and he's going to get one. I believe in my heart of hearts he's eventually going to get one. I mean, they're just going to keep coming back. I mean, the Baylor loss was disappointing, upsetting that it went that way in the championship game, but this ain't the last we heard from Gonzaga. They are a legitimate year-in, year-out national championship contender. They're going to be in the mix every single year, I think, at least until Mark Few is out of there.
Yeah, I mean, I heard him actually the other day. He did Adam Marston's podcast, Mark Few. He doesn't do many podcasts, so getting Few is pretty cool. Shout out to Marston for doing that. He's on the radio there, so that was easy. But they talked about that. They talked about all that stuff. So. Someone asked me the other day, what's Tommy Lloyd leaving Gonzaga mean to them, their assistant, who's so terrific? I don't think it means as much as it would 5 to 7 years ago. They've built what they have in Gonzaga now. They are a power. Tommy Lloyd, I'm not saying isn't as important, but Tommy Lloyd was important 10 years ago when they were trying to get to become what they are. Tommy Lloyd was the architect beside few. Don't sleep in Arizona either. He's going to make that group good. One other point I wanted to jump on and touch on, Trey Mitchell, player from UMass who, I kind of thought would go to the NBA. I thought he had some really good measurables. I think he will be a really good player in the NBA. He's slimmed his list down transfer-wise to 6 teams, and the teams are interesting. So we'll kind of throw them out there. LSU, Texas, Georgia, Florida State, Illinois, and how about this? Bryant. How about that, Jared Grosso? I love it.
Yeah, one team doesn't belong in that list, Georgia. Just stay the hell away from there.
Yeah. Well, I think he's looking at it and saying, well, I could probably feast in this system. If you notice and you look at where he wants to go, and this is why I don't think Florida State makes sense. Look at the 4 teams that he didn't, outside of Florida State. What do they do, all of them? They all go mile a minute.
Yeah.
Trey Mitchell wants to play in that lob type of system where you run, you grab the lob, and you dunk, and you can create on your own in the half court. I wouldn't go to Georgia because Tom Crean sucks. I don't think he was
pace, but nobody could put the ball in the basket. What's it good going up and down, miss shot, turnover. I mean, that's Georgia.
I think it's Texas. I think Texas could be. If he goes, if he said with Chris Beard, Texas isn't necessarily a team that goes up and down, but I think they're, with the guard play they have coming back, they added Askew as well from Kentucky. I think Texas is really an interesting choice. What if he goes to Bryant? How interesting would that be? It's been clear that you don't have to go to a big school.
That's an ascending program too.
They are. They are a fun system to play in too. With Jared Grosso, Illinois would be fun also under Mr. Underwood. You got Coburn there though, so we'll see. All right, let's wrap this thing up. What do you got going on this weekend, Ian? Coburn left. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Coburn left. My fault. Forgot about that.
Yeah, well, last weekend was our holiday weekend here in Canada, Victoria Day weekend, so it's always the week before Memorial Day. But happy Memorial Day to everyone in the States, you included. I hope you have a great weekend. You get the fireworks out, hot dogs, hamburgers, whatever you do, swim by the pool, the usual Memorial Day traditions. Enjoy the weekend. For me, it's just going to be chilling, watching Stanley Cup playoffs, watching NBA playoffs, watching a little baseball. I think there's a UFC this weekend again. There usually is. So that's what I'm doing, and betting some games and hopefully profiting in the process. So just a typical weekend for me, Jeff.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't have much going on myself. My brother's birthday was the other night. We kind of had that party for that. So I don't really have much going on. I've talked about this kind of in my personal life. My parents, mainly my sister, my parents are ownership partners in it, but my parents run a wedding venue, and that's a very busy business. So a lot of the time on the kind of weekends and stuff, I don't know if they're doing any weddings this weekend, but they're seemingly always busy. So, not that I live through my parents, but, anytime you have a party or something. Plus, I know they're setting some up for 4th of July, a party. So, and I still think people are kind of testy as far as whether they want to party or not. So, plus, I've heard around here at least, it's going to be a crappy weekend. 50s, and rainy. So
that's exactly what it is here right now. And by the way, I know it's a basketball show, but if you plan on betting or handicapping Major League Baseball tonight, you better hold off. And I would just take it easy. Don't spend hours at it. Half of this card could be a rain out tonight.
Yep.
In Major League Baseball. So
I would probably focus on, do yourself, look at what, don't allow weather to not be a part of your handicap tonight. You want to keep that in mind. Baseball, I'll tell you what, I hit on baseball yesterday again. I'm touchy right now with baseball, but I'm hitting with it. I had the White Sox run line last night against that Bruce Zimmerman guy. I don't know who the hell that guy is.
Yeah, you just take the White Sox against lefty blindly.
Yeah, they kill it.
You're good.
They're so good against lefties. You can find Ian on Twitter at Bobano, as he mentioned, and I put that in the chat. Ian does hockey as well. He's a big hockey guy. He's from Canada. He's got some hockey shows. Make sure you check out what Ian's doing on the ice. I don't cap hockey, and if anyone ever DMs me, I send them to Ian Cameron. So Make sure you check
That was a
him
good
out.
night on the ice last night, Jeff. 3-0 sweep in hockey. We cashed also a Carolina Hurricanes -1.5 games series bet before the series began to win that game, win that series 4-2 or better, and they were able to do that. So
Well, look
last
at
night
this.
was
We
a
got
good night, and Stanley Cup playoffs were as good as it gets.
look at this. I'll be honest. I might watch this over that Clipper game. You got a game 7 tonight. Minnesota Wild and the Golden Knights. You got to go Golden Knights at home, right?
I don't know. Minnesota's got all the momentum. They came back from a 3-1 deficit to tie.
Oh, really? Wow.
Vegas has had a tough time closing this out. I wouldn't want to lay a price that steep. What I think could happen is a low-scoring start to the game tonight. And if it's a one-goal game either way, going into the third period, elimination game live wagers over the total in the third period. You get the net empty. They pull the goalie for the extra attacker, sometimes with 4 or 5 minutes left, and you could get an explosion of goals late in the game. So that's something to look for. Anybody interested in betting hockey, third period overs or a live over in an elimination game like tonight. It could start out slow, the scoring, but it could increase in that third period.
Very good. 2 things before we wrap this thing up. I saw O.J. Simpson was commenting on Bill Cosby being denied parole. Can he stop with that, by the way, Ian? Maybe we shouldn't be getting...
Controlling all the people that can't get out of prison, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, OJ, we get it. Like, you think it's funny that you got away with murder against your ex-wife, and it's all a big troll job for you now, but it's like, look, Bill did what he did, but, like, stop commenting on, like, he does that with like criminal cases as well. Like he'll like be like, oh, I don't know if that person killed that. It's like, maybe you shouldn't be talking about that, OJ. Hey, Twitter world, it's me, yours truly. Stop. Talk about like golf and football and fantasy and stuff.
What he was doing at the beginning, I guess he's gone to the other route now.
Yeah. I always remember when he first joined Twitter and he goes, I got some getting even to do with his Twitter, and I was just like, what does that mean?
What did Twitter ever do to him in 20 years?
Yeah, but it's like, and then he put like knives next to it. It's like, what the hell? What do you mean you got some getting even to do? What does that mean? And also, if you enjoy the Mafia, you enjoy organized crime, you enjoy organized crime history, go check out my podcast, The Sit Down. You can find it on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. It's me and Blackjack Fletcher, my co-host. We talk about mafia figures in history. We got a great show about Joe Massino this week. Joe Massino is considered by most people the last boss of the American mob, the true last boss. Joe Massino went from being a lunch truck operator to the boss of the Bonanno crime family. He took the family through the Donnie Brasco situation, multiple upheaval attempts. And then he became a federal informant. He was the first of his kind to do so, to save his own skin. He is still alive as well. So check that out wherever you get your pods if that's something you find interesting. We did a Jimmy Burke episode. Yes, the real Jimmy Burke, not Jimmy Conway or whatever they called him in Goodfellas. We do John Gotti. We did all sorts of guys. So go check that out to sit down over the weekend.
I know, Jeff, that you're a big Sopranos fan, obviously,
Huge.
like I am. You revere the show. I have not seen this yet. I've been wanting to see it. I've not had time to see it. I'm going to finally start watching this on YouTube, this Talking Sopranos.
Yes.
That they've been doing with Steven Sharifa, Bobby Bacala, and of course the guy who played Christopher Moltisanti. I haven't seen any of it yet. I'm going to start watching it from episode 1 next week. I'm looking forward to that. So
yeah, I actually watch it.
Of every episode, yeah.
Initially, I didn't watch it just because Sharipa would always like interrupt Moltisanti, but no, I've actually watched it quite weekly now. Like I watched, they had one the other night. They had on Dick Barone, that Dick Barone character, and Valentina, who was my favorite Gumata. That I thought she was the hottest chick in the show. I just liked her style, and surprisingly, she's gotten better looking over the years. She's like 45 now. She's a fox.
Yeah,
I actually really like it because they always bring on like a character or someone that was involved with that episode, and they just kind of talk about it. It's really good. I would check it out.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to finally next week after all this time. Not enough talking about it. Let's start watching it.
By the way, one other thing with the mob that I think you would like, Ian, I've gotten down these rabbit holes recently, and it's quite fascinating, is watching people watch mob movies that have never seen them before. Have you ever seen those videos?
Yes, a couple of them. Yeah.
So there's this girl. She might be 25, just a young. She probably lives in Nebraska or something. and she watched Goodfellas for the first time, and she taped it and put it on YouTube. Hilarious, because she's
know what mob life is like. Yeah,
it's really funny. It's really good stuff. But all right, we're out of here. Enjoy NBA tonight. Enjoy NHL. Enjoy your night. Stay safe out there. If you're gonna drive, please don't drink. And if you're gonna drink, make sure you get an Uber or Lyft, whatever. I'm the Big Man on Campus. He's Ian Cameron. We're here every day, noon Eastern. We'll see you tomorrow. Hoops Betting Hour. Ski Profits on with us tomorrow. Ian, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Jeff. Good luck, everybody.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. See ya.